Unpacking is a wonderful pixel art game that, on the surface, only seems to be about, well, unpacking. You take items out of boxes and place them around rooms until everything fits in a place that makes sense. But under the surface, you can find a rich story about the life of the protagonist and all the ups and downs she went through throughout her life, all without a single word of dialogue. Of course, she has album entries at the end of each level, but funnily enough, those add less to the actual story than simple context clues. Today, I'm setting out to tell you all about the story of this mostly relaxing game and all the references and Easter eggs I could find, combing over every bit of the game to show you why it's a beautiful story about a girl growing up, pursuing her passions, and going through relationships, both good and bad, till she's finally able to reach her happy ending. This is intended as a video you can put on the background if you wish, but I'll be showing gameplay and items within the game to support my points. I'll be going level by level to tell this wonderful story, and every small detail we can glean from each room. If you want to skip to the part of the video where I summarize my interpretation of the story, you can go to the time and listen on screen, but you will miss some of the smaller details that, to me, help make this game more unique. This will also be my first time doing something like this, so bear with me if it's not perfect. Thank you, and I really hope you enjoy as we dive into the story of Unpacking. This is, of course, my interpretation of the story, and some may see it differently, but this is how I see it based on all the clues we get throughout the entire game. I hope you enjoy. We start the game by selecting an album, framing the game as us filling out said album throughout the years with pictures of our various homes and rooms. The first level takes place in 1997, where although we don't know for sure how old our protagonist is, who we'll be referring to as P from here on out, we can glean from the next level that at this time, she's likely either a preteen or a young teenager. We start in a house, with this level only containing one room, the protagonist's bedroom, which contains a loft bed and a nice shelf on the side, looking like the kind of bedroom I would have loved to have as a kid, even with my fear of heights. We only have 3 boxes to unpack, with a total of 49 items, but we better savor it while we can because that will quickly begin to grow with each passing level. The background music for this level is called Child's Play, as P is a child or early teen here, but if we activate the cassette player it switches to I Like Water, which can be seen as another childlike title in its simplicity. From here, the main gameplay loop begins. We open up the boxes and start taking items out that we must place somewhere in the room. While at first we won't know for sure whether something will be in the right place or not, once every item is unpacked, items in an incorrect location will be outlined in red. Every item has a set of specific locations where they are allowed to be placed. We cannot progress to the next level until either every item is in a correct location, or, if we're doing Dark Star mode, we have every item in a wrong location. But we'll get to Dark Star mode after the main playthrough of the game. There are several items of note in this first level, such as the dreidel, which is the first hint of the protagonist being Jewish, as well as some books that we can tell are actually real books. These include Dracula, Peter Pan, Rapunzel, and The Cat in the Hat Comes Back. These fairy tales, or children's tales, play into P eventually becoming a children's book author, and likely inspired her to do so in the first place. We can also unpack various stuffed animals, including a stuffed pig that will accompany us throughout the entire game. Here, it appears brand new, with a nice red bow tie. Another plush we can find is a dragon, which is a reference to a now defunct webcomic called Dragon Tales, Tales with T-A-I-L, which was created by one of the game's developers, Tim Dawson. There are also some action figures we can unpack, showing that our protagonist, even from a young age, never fell into the stereotype of girls only liking dolls and not action figures. It's not much on its own, especially as that stereotype has faded over the decades, but combined with some later plot points of the story, it goes to show this game being subtly progressive. We can also find our first Nintendo-inspired console of the game, the Game Kid, an obvious reference to the Game Boy. We can even put it under our pillow, which I'm sure many of us can remember doing to our handheld games when we were kids in an attempt to play them past bedtime. I know I did that when I was a kid with my DS. She also has a Tamagotchi, which were popular around the time. One item of note is the double-decker London bus, the first of many souvenir items throughout the game, indicating that our protagonist or her family likes to travel the world. We will come to see several more the further we go. Lastly, we can also unpack 2 framed photos of drawings, one of a pig and one of a horse, the pig resembling that of her stuffed animal, and the first hint of our protagonist being a fan of art, foreshadowing her eventual career, which is supported by the sketchbook she also owns. This level also has 2 interactable items, the Rubik's Cube, which we can right-click several times to eventually solve, and the cassette player, which changes the background music. These 2 are tied to stamps or stickers we can get for this level, but those will get their own section after the main story. Once everything is in place and the level is finished, we can take a picture of it to place inside the album. For later levels, each room has its own entry, and we'll get to all of them, but for this first level, only having one room means there's only one entry, which reads, "Finally, my own room." So that's all the major details with this level, other than the stickers, which I'm going to give their own section at the end like I mentioned. So to summarize, with this being only the first level of the game and only a single room, we're mostly getting introduced to the protagonist. Although her gender isn't quite clear yet, we found out quickly she is a Jewish girl with an interest in art and seems to like reading, 2 setups for her eventual career down the road. She likes to travel and previously had to share a room with someone, who we come to learn was likely her sister. It's a nice introduction, but next level we'll begin to learn more about her, so let's go ahead and move on. The next level is in 2004. This is the biggest time skip in the game, but it makes sense given that in this level, P has moved out into an apartment for college. For now, she lives alone. This level is made up of 3 rooms, a bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom, with 11 boxes, plus an unboxed computer monitor. This level has 136 items, and the background music is Own 2 Feet, referencing how this is the first time P will be on her own, but will become City Girl if you change the music with the CD player, showing that she's out in the city now instead of what was likely a more rural home. There are several more items to note this time, as you may expect. The books have shifted to be less about fairy tales and more about drawing, with books about drawing anatomy, poses, and landscapes. On top of these, however, there's also a fantasy book, which plays into her becoming a fan of fantasy and Dungeons & Dragons specifically, which may also play into her eventual career of writing children's books. Though, if she wrote any of those with the fantasy genre, it's most likely way less mature than the stuff she'd experienced with D&D. We also finally get the confirmation that P is a girl, as we unpack several bras, which become a recurring item for the rest of the game, as well as folded up underwear and tampons. As mentioned before, there is a computer monitor, as well as an entire box dedicated to just a tower to go with it. These are old computers, with the big blocky monitor we would have seen around this time. We can also unpack a keyboard and mouse, as well as a mousepad. There's another souvenir this time alongside the London bus, the Paris Eiffel Tower. There are also several DVDs, which will become a mainstay from here on, and we can actually tell what they are. Donnie Darko, Ghost World, and The Matrix. I won't go in depth on what every movie and later game is about because that's not really what this video is about. I'll just point out the references. She also has more framed photos, this time of a fox girl and a monkey face. The stuffed pig is still here, though it has gone through some age and change as it has lost its red bow tie, which likely got frayed and had to be thrown out. The other plush she still has is the cat. She has another spiral notebook, likely for drawing, as well as a college poster and a poster called 3 Miles Home. The 6 interactable items in this level are the toilet, CD player, alarm clock, desktop computer, wooden model, and the Rubik's Cube. Activating the computer once everything is in place for it opens up an old school version of Windows, where a chat box will even open up. Though it's too pixelated to read what it says, or who it's from. Once everything is in place, we can snap a picture to add to our album, and we can get different entries from P depending on which room we pick. we pick the bedroom, the entry is, "Classes start Monday. Uni, here I come." If we pick the bathroom, it's "Private bathroom, score." And finally, if we pick the kitchen, we get, "I have to cook for myself? Uh-oh." Very relatable. To summarize, P has grown up a lot and is now moving out on her own for the first time to go to college. She's still pursuing a love of art and studying up with books to become better at it. This is more of a transitional period of her life as she becomes an adult and heads out on her own, though she won't stay alone for long, and starts living with other people as she further grows into her own independent person. It is now 2007, 3 years later. P now lives with 2 roommates, 1 male and 1 female. I don't believe it's ever specified whether anyone in the group is dating, however. It doesn't seem like P dates any of them, but the 2 might be dating each other. They can afford to live in a house with 5 available rooms for us to unpack in: P's bedroom, the bathroom, living room, kitchen, and dining room. The level has 14 boxes and 1 computer monitor with a total of 168 items to unpack. Not much more than the previous level. This is the first level, however, to feature already placed items that can be moved, though unlike one of the future levels, you can only move a few of them. The background music is called Friends for Life, which is accurate since these 3 will indeed be friends for the rest of the game, but if the CD player is activated, it changes to Game On. This references how P likely met the friends through D&D. We can gauge some of the other characters' interests by some of the items already seen at the start of the level. In the living room, there is a mannequin dressed up with what looks like a makeshift outfit. And along with other items in the room, like a sewing machine in the same room and mannequin heads in the dining room, it implies one of the roommates, likely the girl, given the outfit is made for one, likes making clothes. On the shelves in the dining room, we can also find figures that appear to be D&D characters, specifically an archer and a rider, which is likely how P became friends with these 2, but I'll go more into that later. This level also introduces 2 new Nintendo-inspired game consoles, that being the Game Box, a reference to the GameCube, and the GameKit Advance, a reference to the Game Boy Advance, building on the earlier version from previous levels. Once the game box is hooked up to the TV, we can actually turn it on, with the game displayed being Cactus Carts, a reference to Mario Kart Double Dash. You can also turn on the computer monitor like in the second level. This level is also where we get to see P's 3rd souvenir, the Leaning Tower of Pisa from Italy, which is yet another European continent P has visited. On top of these, we can find 3 photos, one of the Florence Cathedral, one of the Colosseum, and one of Venice, playing into the locations she's visited. We have to wonder how much money she has to be able to visit these international locations, even if only rarely. Perhaps she's saving up for them specifically. We can interact with 6 items in this stage, just like before. The CD player, toilet, game box, desktop box, wooden model, and alarm clock. This is also the first stage where P has the chicken and the first chick plushies. Keep these in mind, as it's a fun detail that with each recurring level, the amount of chicks grows, with each of them being different and unique. This first one is a simple yellow chick. This level includes more movie references, as well as this time also including game references. The movies we can find are a couple we've seen before, like Donnie Darko, Ghost World, and The Matrix, but we've also got Brokeback Mountain and Pan's Labyrinth. For the Game Box/GameCube games, we can also see P owns The Simpsons Hit and Run, Mario Kart Double Dash, as seen on the TV, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, and Puyo Pop Fever. Other notable items include various books that further allude to P learning how to make art, with books about drawing poses and anatomy, presumably the same ones as before, but this time there are also tabletop guides and fantasy novels, leaning more into her D&D interests alongside the 20-sided die. Given that she has a figure of a bard, that's likely what she plays as, which makes sense given her creative attributes. P also has her diploma, which she gets to proudly display on the wall, meaning that she managed to graduate from college, which is good for her. We don't actually know what she got a degree in as far as I'm aware. It likely had to do with the arts in some way if I had to guess. She now also has a drawing tablet and a couple notebooks, as well as a sketch of a kitsune we can pin on the wall, all further adding to her love of art. We can also find an album, which is likely where she stores all the images that she takes whenever we take an image of the level once we're complete. There are also various fridge magnets we can unpack, which becomes an occasional reoccurring item as well, though some of the later ones have fun things you can do with them. We'll get to that when we get to it, though. We can see P also has a work hat and work apron, as well as a matching long sleeve and short sleeve shirt and pants. The apron makes me believe she either works in a certain kind of retail chain or she works in food. As someone who has done both, I fully know what that's like, and I do not envy her having to do that. Lastly, she still has her pig plush, which feels like one of the more important things, doesn't it? Once again, each room has a different album entry that shows a little more personality. The living room entry reads, "Movie nights are gonna be awesome!" Movies are always more fun with friends. I've never really found an exception to that. So, I can fully understand that. The kitchen entry is way bigger than my last kitchen, which is certainly true, plus more space for those magnets. The bathroom entry is, wait, we're all sharing one bathroom? As someone who also lives in an apartment with one guy and one other girl, having only one bathroom really sucks. I didn't realize how important having two was until I moved here. Oh well. The dining room entry reads, "Game nights just got more convenient." Obviously, she could mean game nights as a normal board and card games, but it's also likely she means it's easier for the three tenants of this apartment to get together for D&D. I suspect they played together in college, maybe even as part of a club or something similar, but now since they live together, it's easier to play whenever. Lastly, the bedroom entry reads, "This was a big day, I'm ready for bed." Yeah, moving is always a hassle, but especially with this many things, it makes for a tiring day. I remember when I moved in, it took me like multiple days to get everything unpacked, and it was very exhausting. With all that taken care of, we've reached the end of the level. P has reached an important time in her life, having finished college and earned her degree. During her time in college, she met two friends, and became so close with them that they all moved in together, and it seems P is incredibly happy with where she is right now. Her passion for art grows, but also becomes matched by an interest in fantasy, specifically D&D, which seems to be how she connected with her friends and new roommates. All in all, she's doing well for herself. Of course, a massive change is on the horizon, something that could be later considered a dark time in P's life, even if she won't realize it at the time. Right away, the next level, 2010, feels very different. This apartment is monochrome, unlike the previous places which had lots of color and life to them. It doesn't exactly seem like the kind of place an artist like P would want to live at, but we can quickly find out through context clues, along with everything else, that she isn't moving into a brand new place on her own. Instead, she's moving in with someone else, just like the previous level, only this time, it's a boyfriend. To start off, this level contains 4 rooms for us to unpack in. The living room, kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom. There are 15 boxes to unpack plus 2 extra items, for a total of 154 in all, one of which being a pet bug. I didn't mention it, but one of the roommates in the last level clearly had a thing for bugs, and it seemed that they got P into that kind of hobby as well. This is less items than the last level, though this is the first one where every single item in the level that was already placed can be moved, which leads to how we can get a couple stickers as well as Dark Star mode, but we'll get to that in their own sections. The background music for this section is Infatuation, a clear reference to P being so in love with her boyfriend that she can't realize how bad the relationship is for her, at least at first. If you use the stereo, the music changes to Pretentious, which probably describes the boyfriend. In the game files, the boyfriend is named Eric, based on his many music-based items in the apartment, like the stereo, vinyl records, and collection of CDs. It's clear the man is a fan of music, and might even create his own as a hobby. Contrasting P's clear love for a Nintendo, he owns an Xbox-inspired console called the X-Block, which, once activated, plays Android Cold War 3, a reference to Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Some of the games he has for the console are Call of Duty, as mentioned, Halo 3, Dark Souls, and Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. He also has 2 DVDs for Fast and the Furious and Die Hard. Lastly, he has the books Moby Dick, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and The Great Gatsby. It's probably safe to say that just from those games, movies, books, and his love for music that we can tell exactly what kind of guy we're dealing with here. Someone who may come across as presumptuous, if nothing else, though that's only speculation. Based on the apartment and everything in it, the boyfriend, or Eric, seems to be fairly wealthy too, at least more than P. All his kitchen appliances are expensive looking, and although the apartment itself is nice, his stuff is pretty disorganized, especially in the bedroom. There's so little room after P moves in that she can't actually place the diploma anywhere on the wall to proudly display it. The only possible places we can put it are under the bed, hidden away, or above the toilet, which is completely humiliating in my opinion. It's generally believed in the community that this is the main thing that led to them eventually breaking up by the time of the next level. As for P, we have several recurring items to unpack, such as her beloved pig. However, this time it has a tear in its belly, and a smaller one on the back of its head, as well as some dirt on its right ear. Its age is really beginning to show. We also get a new chick, this time having a shell head. She still has her tabletop guides and fantasy books as well as her 20-sided die, so she's still a fan of D&D, though something tells me she doesn't get to indulge in the hobby as much as she used to. She still has her art books, as well as one called Type that seems to be about programming, but I'm not quite sure on that. This was also in the last level, but I unfortunately forgot to mention it, and had to add it in the script, post-editing. For her video games, she has all the same GameCube or GameBox games she had before, but this time she also has Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, one of the Zelda games I really want to play, which, funnily enough, before writing this script, I wrote it before this Switch 2 Direct, so I am very, very excited to play Wind Waker on the GameCube emulator. Very, very excited. Anyway, and Animal Crossing. When we activate the game box, what shows up on screen is Lash and Dash, which is a reference to Ty the Tasmanian tiger. For her DVDs, there are some returning ones that we've seen before, but this time she's also got Up. She also has the Game Kid Advance from before. She still has her notebooks, but it seems her art supplies have decreased this level, likely showing how the boyfriend may be somewhat suppressing her artistic ability, which in an apartment like this isn't really all that surprising. For the album entries, each one helps to further paint the picture that this is a doomed relationship, and that the warning signs were always there. For the living room, we get, "Feels so serious moving into his place." We can tell she's excited, love blinding her to how bad of a decision this will eventually be. The bedroom entry reads, "Barely managed to fit myself in here." The space is cramped, and I consider this one of the hardest levels because of how hard it is to fit everything into a reasonable place. Not to mention the diploma, which you may not immediately realize can go under the bed or above the toilet, as you wouldn't reasonably think they would go there. The kitchen's entry is, "Not all coffee is instant. Who knew?" Further showing the wealth gap between the two of them, which isn't always the best for a relationship. Lastly, the bathroom entry is, "A shower with a view," owing to the apartment being fancier than what she's used to. In summarization, P has taken another step in her life and moved in with a boyfriend. Unfortunately, love has blinded her to how bad of a relationship this is. Their sense of style, with him seeming to dislike many colors while she's an artist, clashes, and although the apartment is nice, it shows there's a clear wealth gap between the two of them. There's barely any space for P to move in, and one of her biggest accomplishments, her college diploma, must either be hidden away or placed above a toilet. It was a doomed relationship, but thankfully P doesn't seem to stay in it for too long, and once she's out of it, she moves on to bigger, better things. After a bad breakup, P moves back in with her family in her childhood home, taking us back to the bedroom from the very first level, alongside a bathroom we didn't get to see before. This move definitely shows P wanting to get back to something comfortable and safe while she recovers from her breakup. There are only 8 boxes in this level, plus one unboxed item, and 68 items in total. One of the smallest levels so far, though that won't be the case for the upcoming ones. The music for this level is Lost and Found, which can be a reference to a couple things. P feeling lost after the breakup and needing to find herself again, or having lost some of her childhood passion and regaining some of it by staying in her childhood room. When using the cassette player to change the music, it becomes It's Not You, which is likely P telling herself that the breakup wasn't her fault, which seems to be true. To start off with the returning items, the stuffed pig is still here, of course, which has a tear, yet still remains a part of P's life forever. We can also see that P has a sensor that appears exactly the same as the one her boyfriend had, implying she stole it from him after their breakup. Normally, I'm not one for advocating for this kind of thing, but in all fairness, he probably didn't even notice. Other than that, P still has her 20-sided die, bard figure, and fantasy or D&D books, which means that hobby is still alive and well, alongside more notebooks. She also has pen boxes and her drawing tablet back, showing her artistic side flourishing once more, alongside her diploma, which she can once again place on the wall where it belongs. Chanel also has 2 new chicks, one black and one brown, bringing us to 4. This time, she has a 3DS, which to my knowledge doesn't have its own fake name in-game, alongside a few games, though we aren't able to tell what they are. As mentioned before, she has a cassette player again, one of 3 interactable items alongside the lava lamp and the ukulele. Another book you can find is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, a novel that inspired Blade Runner. She also has several photos, one of her roommates from the 3rd level who were also into D&D, and who she seems to still be friends with, one of Venice, and one of P and her ex. These can go up on the corkboard along with a sketch of a piggy, another hint of P's eventual future, one that's approaching faster and faster. The funny thing is, if we try and put the photos up on the corkboard, the only one that doesn't work is the photo of P and her ex, and if we try, the pin will be placed through the boyfriend's face. The level will only allow us to finish if we place the photo somewhere hidden like the cabinet, which actually confused me the first time I played the Steam version, because I didn't realize it was the boyfriend. In this level, outside of the items we can unpack, we can find several in the level starting off that may look familiar, such as the Dracula and Peter Pan books, framed drawings, various plushies, and the Tamagotchi, among some others. 2 other books we can find are 2 Artemis Fowl books, one that's just Artemis Fowl, and the other being Artemis Fowl, the Arctic Incident. Another fun detail is we can see karate belts, all the way from white to blue, which shows what was likely multiple years of some form of martial art in P's childhood. Coincidentally, I am also a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, so yay. The entries for the 2 rooms of this level are kind of fun, with the bathroom giving us some new information about P's family. The bedroom entry is simply, this room used to feel bigger, which is clear enough as is, but the bathroom entry is, my sister and I used to fight over this bathroom, which is the first time a sibling has ever been mentioned, though we don't know her age or much else about her. So, to summarize, after a bad breakup, P moved back into her old bedroom in her childhood home for a sense of familiarity and comfort. Here, surrounded by old memories and mementos of where her love for art began, she's able to regain that drive to be artistic and move on to bigger and better things, setting us up for the final few levels of the game. Now, we are in 2013. And the wiki says that this level is a house, but to me it looks like an apartment. However, I'm going to go with what the wiki says and treat it as a house. So if it is a house, then this is the first level where she lives alone in a house and not an apartment. She likely saved up money during her stay at her parents' before purchasing this home. This won't be the final place she stays, but it will be the only other location, other than the first level, where we have more than one level in that place. This level has 5 rooms: the bedroom, the living room, the bathroom, the kitchen, and the office, with 28 boxes plus 1 unboxed cactus and a total of 281 items, the most so far. The music for this level is Going Solo, which has a pretty obvious meaning as the protagonist is living alone, though changing the music with the speaker makes it instead a song called Yeah Nah, foreshadowing someone moving in with her in the next level. I think the most interesting part of this level is that P has her own office, something she's never had. Probably because she couldn't afford it, but now that she has it, she has everything she needs to properly start working towards her goals. A goal that she has been basically working toward her entire life. We have the usual returning items such as the D&D stuff, including a D20 shirt and now painted Bard figure, and art supplies, with more sketches you can pin on a corkboard, as well as a storyboard showing that P is truly beginning to work towards becoming a children's book author. She also has much more bigger scale items like a printer and a scanner, as well as business cards. She has one more chick this time, that being one with an eggshell. The pig plush also makes a return, but this time it's repaired. The tears are patched up, and it's much more clean, likely symbolizing how P has recovered from her breakup and re-emerged better than ever. Though, sadly, the appearance of a framed photo of an angel beetle implies that her pet beetle that we saw in the previous few levels has passed away. At least it likely will eventually live on in one of her books. The 3DS returns along with several games we can now recognize, including a Pokemon game, Magic Chain, and Animal Crossing New Leaf. Along with this, we get the final Nintendo-based console, the Witch, which has a few references. It obviously references both the Switch and the Wii, supported by the Wii Sports game P owns, but it also may be a reference to Witch Beam, the developer of the game. When turning on the Witch Sports pops onto the TV, an obvious reference to Wii Sports. All her Game Box games are returned as well. The only remaining photos of the roommates, with the ex-boyfriend gone, showing how P has completely moved on. Good for her. She also gains a new souvenir item, a Holland windmill, showing she has now visited the Netherlands, yet another location in Europe. This girl needs to try visiting China or Japan or something in the East. The menorah and Hamsa are further confirmation of P being Jewish, something we haven't been able to see in a long time. P has also brought Peter Pan with her and bought a Blu-ray player. She has all the same DVDs as before, but also adds on Avatar and The Hobbit. Between the back patches and a cane P now has, it's assumed she injured her back in some way, though it isn't quite clear how. Given her propensity to travel, however, it's possible she injured it in the Netherlands. Thankfully, her future career doesn't involve anything that the back pain should get in the way of. She also has a few more fridge magnets, including the numbers 1, 2, and 3, and a plus sign and equal sign, which we can properly arrange to get a sticker. Other than the ones I mentioned earlier, the interactive items in this level are the lava lamp, ukulele, normal lamp, whiteboard, on which P draws a guitar, microwave, and toilet. The entries for this level are pretty standard. The living room one is, I'll figure out where to get a couch from later. And indeed, we see she has a couch in the next level. Bathroom one says, I've missed long baths. It's probably because in her old house it would have been hard to get just enough alone time for that small singular bathroom, even if it did have a bathtub and not just a shower. The office entry is, making this my art space, which she indeed does, showing her dedication to making art now. The bedroom entry reads, a queen-size bed all to myself, though it won't remain only to herself for long. Lastly, the kitchen entry reads, Glad I found a place this nice on my budget. Indeed, it feels like a miracle that she was able to find something so nice so quickly, even back in 2013. Happy for her all the same, however. In this period of P's life, she's recovered from a breakup and once again gotten her own place. She's thrown herself even further into making art, buying more supplies to make it even more professional as she feels invigorated and full of life and creativity. She enjoys the new independence that she hasn't felt in a long time, but it won't be long before that changes. Unlike moving in with the ex-boyfriend, however, this change will be for the better. This next level is an interesting one. It is the penultimate level, and takes place in the same home as the previous. So you may be wondering why we need to unpack stuff. Well, that's because we aren't actually unpacking P's stuff for once. Instead, we're unpacking someone else's. Someone we come to find is her girlfriend. In the game files, she's named Molly, so that's what we'll refer to as for convenience. The music for this level is Soulmate, which should be obvious, girlfriend. Yeah, and using the speaker changes it to My Dear Molly, which is just adorable. There are 12 boxes and 9 unboxed plants with 134 items to unpack, which will pale in comparison to the final level. It becomes obvious this is not P's stuff as all the boxes look different, looking to be white instead of the usual plain brown. Some things we can immediately learn about Molly is that she has a green thumb, given how many plants she has as well as empty flower pots that get filled up in the final level. Which is kinda cute because of how P had a single cactus in the previous level. She also has potting mix and succulents, and a majority of her fridge magnets are plant-based. This, alongside with cinema, seems to be Molly's biggest interest, as she has a decent collection of movies, which include Jaws, Shutter, The Princess Bride, Speed, Hitchcock Classic Collection, Godzilla, Shin Godzilla, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. On top of all this, however, she also owns books about movies, a Shadowbox ticket, a Monster Head prop, and even an award, which is likely something Molly received for her work on Antihero, an in-universe movie that it's implied she worked on. She even has a cup, shirt, and poster for the movie. She also has several other books as well, including Dune, The Handmaid's Tale, Sherlock Holmes, and Murder on the Orient Express, showing she has some interest in detective novels. She's also likely of Thai descent, given she has a Naga statue, Thai hot plate, and more, which may finally convince P to visit a continent other than Europe. An interesting thing about this level is that almost every item we placed before will be in the same place you had it last time. This includes anything placed on the side table, even though it's moved to a different location in the room. This even applies to Darkstar mode. However, if you want to see how P would arrange her own furniture completely on her own, there's a little thing you can do. You finish both the 2013 and 2015 levels, then restart the 2013 level, then exit without placing anything, go into the 2015 level, and start over as well. With this, you can see P organize her own rooms. It's pretty cool. He also gets a few new items in this level, including 2 new chicks, a gray-backed one, and a shell-bottom one. She also has more plushies than that, and more pin drawings, alongside another souvenir, that being the Stockholm souvenir. She has a couple of new games too, including Okamiden and what looks like Super Mario Galaxy for the Witch, and a Kirby game for the 3DS. She now also has a photo of Molly alongside her roommates, meaning she likely is still friends with them, which is great to see. There's also a photo of Molly and P as a couple, and alongside her previous magnets, P also has the magnets for the vowels A, E, I, O, U. Likely inspired by Molly, she also has several plants of her own, more than just the one cactus she used to have. She also has a blue ribbon and a trophy, likely from artistic accomplishments since becoming more serious about her art, which is great. She's so close to achieving her dream. The interactable items in this level are the blue speaker, witch, ukulele, whiteboard, which this time shows a monster attacking a city, microwave, lava lamp, Molly's Thai soap flowers, and toilet. When activated this time, the witch will play Tempopo, which even the wiki doesn't seem to know what it's a reference to, so I can't really tell you anything on that one. The entries for this level are all very nice and sweet. For the living room, we get so much more cozy now, feels like a home. Bathroom funnily says, all those drawers filled up so quickly. I can imagine with 2 girls, a small bathroom can indeed fill up very fast. The bedroom entry is, so glad for all that wardrobe space. And the kitchen entry is, looking forward to fresh culinary adventures. I would guess that Molly being Thai means she has a chance to show her a bunch of brand new meals P wouldn't have had otherwise. Lastly, the office entry is, it's been hard, but I'm starting to get somewhere. Referencing her award and her goal of becoming a children's book author, of which she only needs a little longer, a little more work to be successful. She's so close. To summarize the penultimate level, P has finally been making progress toward her goals of becoming a children's book author, and in the time since the last level, she met a Thai girl named Molly and fell in love. It's implied they've dated for a while before Molly decided to move in, clicking with P on several different fronts and complimenting her, unlike P's previous boyfriend. P still has her long-term friends from college, who also seem to have become friends with Molly. They all move together towards a bright future that we get to see in the final level. This is the final level of the game, 2018, and shows P and Molly moving into a house together while they prepare to welcome a baby into their home, most likely through adoption. This time, we unpack both P and Molly's boxes, 42 in total plus a computer and 12 plants, for a whopping total of 563 items, enough to fill 10 entire rooms. Bedroom, nursery, closet, restroom, living room, dining room, kitchen, master bathroom, office, and entryway. This level has a few different music tracks, playing Sunset and Sunset Revisit, symbolizing the sun setting on the end of the game, even if it's not the end of P and Molly's life. Instead, it's arguably the beginning. If you interact with the blue speaker, it changes to Haunts Ride, which, I'll be honest, I don't really get this one at all. Even after research. Oh well. Or, it'll change to Home Sweet Home, which implies this is likely their true final home, where the child will get to grow up. However, if you interact with the pink speaker, Chillin' at the Luau plays instead, which is a nice casual title for fun. This level features mostly returning items from both girls, including all of their books, Blu-rays, and DVDs. Though we also get to see a bunch of copies of P's completed children's novel, featuring the stuffed pig as the apparent mascot. There's even a poster for it as well. And speaking of the pig, he gets a glow-up in this level, being given a yellow bow tie. And because it's unpacked in the nursery, it's implied that P is handing it down to her child, continuing its life cycle for hopefully decades to come. We get the final 2 chick plushies, one with a bow tie and one with sunglasses. With there now being 9 in total, plus the mother, all 10 chicken plushies can perfectly fit on the shelf in the bedroom, which to me indicates it's the perfect and intended place to put them. We also get the final souvenir, which is an elephant from Thailand, showing that P finally went somewhere other than Europe. All it took was finding a girlfriend, then later wife, who probably convinced her to visit. All the video games return, with a few extra additions such as Mario Party and Just Dance for the Witch. Activating the witch this time gives you a familiar tale, a reference to Okami, most likely. We have a new photo of P and Molly kissing, as well as a new book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, the go-to book about raising a baby. The nursery also has what you'd expect: toys, blocks, diapers, and clothes. The interactable items are all previous ones we've seen, like the witch, toilets, and such. Despite being the final level, there isn't much to discuss here in terms of the items themselves, as most of it is just stuff we've seen before. We're filling up an entire home after all, so it makes sense it's mostly just basic kitchen supplies, bedroom stuff like clothes, and bathroom stuff. P and Molly are moving into what would hopefully be their forever home, after decades of moving between so many different places, at least for P. Lastly, we have the album entries for this level. The entryway reads, "Our new home," which is very fitting for this room. The master bathroom is a family-sized bathroom, which is great after all the bathrooms she's had to deal with in the past, like her childhood one. The dressing room, or closet, reads, "Enough space for all of our clothes and then some," which is certainly true as you receive enough hangers to fill the entire closet. The small bathroom reads, "Bonus toilet," which is nice and cute. The office says, "My professional space, for me, the professional." It's nice to see P taking pride in her work after having this hobby and passion throughout her entire life, finally able to make a career out of it. Even though we only get to see its beginnings, I'm sure she'll go on to make even more amazing children's novels in the future. The dining room entry reads, "We're already planning the dinner parties," which I expect to include the two friends of Molly and P that P used to be friends with in college and met through D&D. The kitchen entry reads, "Finally a fridge big enough for all our magnets." Indeed, they do have a lot of magnets you have to fit on the fridge. Living room entry reads, "Lots of space in a backyard. We can get a pet now." It's nice to think that these two will be expanding their family even more, likely getting a dog in the future. The bedroom reads, "Looking forward to the first sleep in our new house." I'm sure after all the unpacking they're doing, they're definitely going to be tired as hell. Lastly, the nursery entry reads, "We're so looking forward to meeting you," meaning this happens before they adopt the baby. This is the final level of the game, and seems to be what Molly and P hope to be their forever home. They'll raise their child here, and hopefully be able to get a pet to expand their family and fill up this large house. P has been through ups and downs, both in her life and in love, but she's finally found someone she truly cares about. She's even launched a successful book, and she and Molly are finally happy together, ready to take on whatever comes next, as even though the sun is setting on the game, their lives have only really now truly begun. With every single level in the game finally covered, I'm going to take this next section to talk about the stickers, then cover the Dark Star route before ending off the video with a summarization of the game's story as a whole. But first, now that we've finished the game, we can make it to the credits, where we get to hear a lovely song, presumably sung by P to Molly.
The moving truck pulls up, there's a knock on the door. Now all your stuff is here, in boxes on the floor.
I won't play the whole thing. You should play the game for yourself if you want to hear it. After the credits roll, however, we get one final entry. "Thanks for joining me on this journey." The wiki seems to be a little weird, as sometimes they refer to these as stamps and sometimes as stickers, but I'm going to go with stickers, as you can place them on the pictures you take for the album with an in-game camera. They act as the game's achievements and correlate to some Steam and Xbox achievements as well. I'm going to list them all for you as well as how to get them. You can use this as a sort of guide if you'd like. Each level has a sticker that you can get just by completing the level. These are Beginnings, completing 1997, Get Smart for completing 2004, Fellowship for completing 2007, Too Cool for completing 2010, Home Cooking for completing 2012, Independent for completing 2013, Love for completing 2015, and No Place Like Home for completing 2018, which is probably a reference to The Wizard of Oz. Hat on Head, which is placing a work hat on the mannequin head in the dining room in 2007. Brew Some Coffee, which is where you take out all the coffee appliances in a cup in 2010, though I've found that this one is kind of finicky to get. Tidy Whities, which is where you put all the boyfriend's underwear into one drawer in 2010, basically just reorganizing his room for him. Rediscover Childhood, which is where you find the lost poster in the sliding toy cabinet and put it up in 2012. Fuzzy Friends, where you unpack the stuffed tiger, place it next to the stuffed pig in 2015. Brilliantly Solved, place the fridge magnets in the order of number plus number equals number. The equation doesn't even have to be correct, and this one you can get in 2015 or 2018. There's Baby Builder, which is where you stack the blocks as high as you can in 2018. Green Thumb, which is where you find a place for all the plants. Solve a Puzzle, which is where you interact with the Rubik's Cube until it's solved. This can be done with any level that has the cube in it. 12 o'clock, interact with the microwave to change the time until it says 12 o'clock. Blast some tunes, change the music. This can be done with any level, since they all have alternate music. A Sometimes Food, which is where you place the cookies on a high shelf. Strike a pose, which is where you interact with the wooden model while picking him up until he dabs. Electrical Hazard, which you can get by putting any electrical appliance, such as a toaster, in the sink or the bathtub. This can be done in any level with all the required things. Gotta Flush 'em All, which is where you flush every toilet. A clear reference to the Pokemon catchphrase, gotta catch 'em all. Game On, which is where you activate a game console. This can be done in any level that has one, which is most of them. Wow, which you get for taking the camera out of the box and placing it anywhere in the room. And Heck Yeah, which you get for simply starting the game. This is every sticker in the game with a small guide to each one. Most of these don't really have any specific references, so it's more just a list of achievements than anything. With all that covered though, there's only one more thing to talk about before summarizing the game, then finishing off the video, and that's Dark Star mode. Dark Star mode is a secret game mode of the game that I actually wasn't aware of until making this video. Whenever we complete a level, a golden star appears to indicate that we have, and we can move on to the next. This is the standard way to play the game, but there actually is a second. If we unpack every single item and move it to a place it doesn't belong, we can complete the level in Dark Star mode. Usually when an item is in the wrong location, it's given a red outline, but once every single item is wrong, they all disappear, and the Dark Star appears. But it's not just the items you unpack. If we're in a level with items already placed that we can move, like with the roommates or boyfriend, we must also move all of those items into the wrong position as well, meaning we have to go out of our way to do this, to place everything wrong. The music will even become distorted and wrong once the Dark Star appears. Each level has its own album entry for doing the Dark Star route, but unlike the normal game where each room has a different entry, there's only one for every level in Dark Star. These are the entries for each level. 1997 reads, "Looks good to me, time to go play." Usual child's mentality. 2004 reads, I'll tidy up a bit later. 2007 reads, "They knew me at uni, they knew what to expect." Meaning she did meet her roommates in college. 2010 reads, "It's fine, he likes my spontaneity." This one is funny to me because in this timeline, it's possible one of the reasons they could have broken up was because of P being messy, instead of not only him not treating her well. 2012 reads, "Took a while to get it all back how I left it," referencing how now that she's back in her old home, she's made it messy again. 2013 reads, "Wasn't planning to entertain much anyway," which is why she's once again on her own. 2015 reads, "Welcome to the jungle," welcoming Molly to her mess. 2018 reads, "Looks good to me, time for a nap." Yeah, makes sense. After unpacking all those boxes, she'd be tired. And lastly, the final entry after the credits reads, "Not going back inside the house, it's trashed." This version of P seems less caring and kind, but that's just how I interpret these entries. Either way, this version of her is far more messy, which can imply some slight changes to the story, like what I mentioned with the boyfriend, or even the fact it could have been one of the reasons she moved out of the roommate's house. Yet, even despite her messiness, Molly still loves her, and they're still ready to start a family together. We can only hope their child won't be the same. And with that, it's time to move on to the story summary, where I'll be recapping everything we've learned about P and her relationships. Ever since P was a kid, she had always been a fan of art and fantastical stories like those of Peter Pan, constantly sketching and drawing animals, some of which were even based on her adored stuffed animals. She grew up in a small rural home with a sister and loving family who always supported her art and helped her talents grow. She's even been able to visit London and would eventually go on to explore several other countries in Europe, having a desire to see the world as much as she can. She also became a fan of Nintendo from a young age, with her first console being a Game Boy, or in this universe, Game Kid. As she grew older, P continued to pursue her passions, keeping various things from her childhood into adulthood, like her favorite stuffed pig, never losing sight of that childhood wonder even as she went to college. She moved out on her own for the first time and, while in college, became a fan of fantasy and Dungeons & Dragons, making 2 friends that she became very close with. She would even then move in with these friends as her drawing capabilities grew and grew. She graduated college, likely with a degree in the arts, something she likes to proudly display whenever she gets the chance. Eventually, however, she would meet someone, a man who she fell in love with, and, while still staying friends with her college buddies, she would move in with. Unfortunately, love blinded her. The man she fell in love with was far wealthier than her, messy, and didn't appear to want to indulge in her artistic side. He didn't allow her to properly display her degree, and the lack of color and space in his home suffocated Pete to the point that, although she couldn't seem to tell at first, eventually she knew this wasn't meant to be. Angry and hurt by his suffocating nature, she broke up with him, deciding to move back into her parents' place, and even stealing some of the excess stuff to get back at him. She lived in her childhood room, and as she spent some time there, she was reminded of her early passions, how she became an artist, and how she grew to love stories and art. She kept her stuffed pig, which was another reminder of what she truly wanted out of life, and eventually she was able to find a good apartment on a reasonable budget and move out once more. This is the first time she lived out on her own in almost a decade. Now out on her own again, and with her confidence restored, she had herself an office to more properly dedicate time, effort, and money to her art. She filled up a home with everything she needed and began to finally live comfortably. And then, something special happened. P met a girl. We don't know how they met, but it's clear that they clicked very quickly, to the point that within less than 2 years, the girl, named Molly, wanted to move in. They seemed to share a lot of interests, with Molly also being an artist of her own, having helped work on a movie, one that even won awards, and enjoying other various movies. Not only that, but Molly also had a green thumb, and even would later on help get P into tending plants as well. P helps her bring in her stuff, and the two settle in together. Their love continued to grow more and more as only 3 years later, the two moved out of their old home and into their final forever home, with P having gone to visit Molly's home country sometime in between, likely to meet her family or simply see more of the world, see the place where her loving wife once grew up. Now in their forever home, they're able to move everything in and even set up a nursery for a child they're planning to adopt. This home is larger than anything P has ever lived in before, enough to support their family and even get a dog sometime later in the future, having a large yard it can run around in. P has achieved her dream and published a successful children's novel, which she proudly displays several copies of as well as a poster, the story being based on the beloved stuffed pig that she now has touched up and plans to give to her own child one day. With the family now settled into this home, they're able to look ahead to see what may come for them in the future. Even though we won't get to see it, as the sun sets on this beautiful game, we know that P is finally happy and comfortable, and hopefully will never have to do any unpacking ever again. At least, until her own kid is ready to take the same journey as her, and explore the world and all its possibilities as well. Hopefully, they're able to find the same wonder in life as P did. As a reminder, that story was only my interpretation. You may have a different one from me, and that's perfectly fine. Unpacking is a simple game on its surface, but it's jam-packed with little story details that most may not even notice when first playing through the game, or even the second. However, once we begin to notice those small details and how they add up to form a bigger picture, we can come to appreciate the game way more than ever before. Plus, all the little references we can spot with the games and movies are pretty fun as well. I like P a lot. First off, as a bisexual woman myself, I appreciate the subtle representation in her having both a boyfriend, even if it was a bad one, and a girlfriend, then later wife, and even eventually adopting a kid. Not only that, I also relate to her wanting to become a children's book author. For me, I'm also working on becoming an author as well, and seeing P go through so much in her life, moving so many times, and even at one point losing a lot of her artistic drive when dealing with the boyfriend, but in the end getting to achieve her dream, it brings me hope that I can do the same. Despite us only getting to see her once, and getting not even a single spoken line from her other than the ending songs, P is one of my favorite video game protagonists, simply because of how relatable she is. She's just a normal person who goes through so much in her life, but never loses sight of what matters most to her, her art. She goes after her dream no matter what, and in the end, she succeeds. This game is great, not only for the story, but because it's a game you can pick up every once in a while and then beat in a few hours. And every time you play it, you'll do things a little differently, place things somewhere different, or might even notice something new you didn't before. That's certainly been my experience, at least before making this video. But even after making this video, after going through every aspect of the game, I'll still probably replay it again sometime. I highly recommend you play it for yourself. It's a fun, relaxing experience with pleasant music and a beautiful, if hidden, story. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is a sort of test to see what it's like to make a video like this, to edit like this, in preparation for doing a series on Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, as well as other games and media in the future, though the next one will probably be Class of 09. If you have any suggestions or criticisms for things I could do better, please let me know in the comments so I can make my future videos even better. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to see me cover more things in the future. Otherwise, I hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time.